Okay, so I'm back for part two. I was talking about my son being born. During my 38th week, I had to be induced because my blood pressure was going sky high. And there was not really an explanation for it. I was heavy, but my blood pressure had been great up until that point. So my doctor just decided, let's go ahead and induce. So that was a Monday. On Tuesday, I was at the hospital, and the process of labor began, which was a long process with us. I was not dilated at all, so I had to use Pitocin, which is a drug that helps your body start to dilate. I had to get a Foley bag, which is super uncomfortable and not very fun. And I had an epidural put in about 14 hours in because starting to be pretty painful, and I was shaking a lot, and the doctors couldn't keep the heartbeat, the fetal monitor, because I was shaking so much. So they put in an epidural. And you know, this is my birth experience. Everyone has their own, and I respect anyone's way of giving birth. And I respect anyone's way of becoming a parent. I was adopted, and it's, you know, it doesn't change anything. That's my mom, that's my dad, that's the way family is. And I respect anyone's way of having children. So yeah, it was crazy long, 40 hours. And then my son was born, and he was amazing and adorable and perfect, and you know, all those things that a brand new baby is. You know, my husband and I were overjoyed, and it was awesome. And then his foot was purple, and the doctor said that happens sometimes with babies who are born at high altitude, which we live in high altitude. And we'll see how it looks in 24 hours. So 24 hours later, they retested his oxygen levels in his extremities, and they were extremely low. So they took my newborn to get an echo and an EKG, and yeah, found out that his heart wasn't formed correctly. It's the reason my blood pressure went so high. It's the reason he took so long to come out. And I can't even explain the terror of finding out your brand new baby needs to be taken from you. Any mother who has experienced it, it's the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I hope it is the scariest thing that will ever happen to me in my life. And you know, my husband is a warrior, and you know, I am now, but that day it was all him. He did everything. He came, and he was the one who told me what was going on. He was the one who made all the decisions, because I had just given birth. My body, my hormones were rocked. I couldn't function in the way to make those decisions. Not to mention, you know, you're on some pretty heavy medication. So my husband, he just pushed through like the soldier that he is. He said, you know, this is going to be the scariest, hardest thing we've ever had to do, but we're going to be successful. And he had that faith that I couldn't find at that point. So my husband was taken to, or my child and my husband went to Children's Hospital, which I cannot say enough good things about Children's Hospital. And we'll go into that more, but I was stuck at the other hospital and couldn't go because I was still healing, and I never had a harder night in my life. I had to be sedated, and I had to have a nurse with me that whole time, because I basically said that I didn't want to live at that point, because I was so scared. And when you've worked really hard to have a child, when you've wanted a child, and then you do, and then someone tells you that there's something wrong with it and it could be something very serious, it's terrifying. And postpartum depression and postpartum issues, in those first 12 hours after you have a baby, it's like nothing works. Everything is crazy, and you don't know how to even form a sentence, let alone comprehend big medical issues. So my son was born with an aortic narrowing, with pretty much a faulty pulmonary valve out of his heart. His atrium, the part that connects your heart, wasn't formed correctly, and he had some holes in his heart. His lungs weren't as strong as they would have been if his heart had been functioning properly. And we found out pretty much the next day that he would be having open heart surgery in the first week of his life. And again, terrifying. But Children's Hospital, made it possible for me to function, because they were so kind and so willing to sit and explain everything. And they printed us a 3D model of his heart to show us, how it wasn't like everyone else's. And they explained everything that would happen. And they had a priest come and give Josiah a baptism. And they had, they had spiritual guidance, they had meditation, they had everything in place that you could possibly need at the scariest moment of your life. And I feel very grateful to every person who was involved in my son's care and recovery, whether that's the surgeon who fixed his heart, or the woman who came in and emptied the trash from his room, the nurses who weighed him and gave him medicine and came in 12 times a day to check on him, and weighed his diapers, and like all this stuff that you wouldn't think needed to happen but did. And while I was there, for the very long time my son was in the hospital as an inpatient, 100 days, a social worker came to me and said, did you know that in this state, we live in Colorado, did you know that there is a program where a parent can become a nursing assistant, and then take care of their child and get paid for it? This program is not available anywhere else in the country, which is crazy. And I think every parent should be able to do these things and not have to worry about losing their home or cars or finances, or going so into debt that they will never see the end of it. So I applied and became a certified nursing assistant before my son had even gotten out of the hospital, and got to start taking care of him from day one out of the hospital and getting paid for it, which is the part that is crazy to me, because I would have done this for free. Obviously, he's my son. I would have done anything. But our plan originally was like, okay, we're either going to have to move back closer to our families, which I love my family, but where we are now is a good place. Or we're going to have to work nonstop to hire a nurse to take care of our son, who we're never going to see, because we're going to have to work so hard just to pay off this person. Or, you know, one of our families is going to have to move out here, which would be difficult because our families live in other places. But I mean, I was so lucky to find this program. I was so lucky to be where I am that this program was even an option. So my son will be 3 in October, and I have been his nurse all along and will continue to be until he doesn't need me anymore, which will be a while. You know, he's amazing and strong and talented and smart and funny and all the things that a 3-year-old should be. He's also crazy and drives me completely insane, which, you know, if you say your child doesn't drive you insane sometimes, you're a liar. Because they all drive us a little insane at times, no matter how much you love them. And I love him to death, but some days, yeah, some days he'll throw something at me and stand there and laugh, and it's annoying. But, you know, he's functioning and moving on with his life and figuring out how to live with these limitations. He cannot eat properly because he didn't have the energy to learn how to breastfeed, and that teaches kids how to eat, how to swallow, how to function in those ways. It seems like it's something so small, but it's huge. It teaches them how to function and move their lips and mouths. And I'm not saying that all breastfeeding, I'm talking bottle feeding, anything. He couldn't do anything. He didn't have the energy or the lung capacity. So when he was very little and in the hospital, he was fed through a tube in his nose called an NG tube. Kids don't normally go home with those tubes, the up the nose one, because once they get old enough, they start yanking it out, and it is not a pleasant experience. It happened to my son when he was in the hospital, and I wept because I felt like it was all my fault and I wasn't watching him and all those things that moms tell themselves. But he, you know, when we wanted him to come home, when he was finally healthy enough, we had to switch to a G tube, which is a little hole in his belly with a little plastic bubble that attaches to a little opening. The bubble is on the inside. It's filled with water, and it's on the inside his belly. And then there's a little lever on top that opens and closes. And then you hook him into a machine that feeds him food. When he was first brought home, it was, 24 hours a day and just little bits at a time, and he threw up so much. I mean, I had to buy new couches and everything because he threw up 8 times a day, every couple hours, and it was so scary. He wouldn't gain weight. The doctors were concerned, and I thought maybe he'd have to go back to the hospital. And eventually, with the amazing doctors at Children's Hospital, where he's still a patient, and his dietitians, also at Children's, amazing people, we figured it out. And the process has been long and moving forward slowly, and there's things that have scared me, and there's days where I've just wanted to break down and cry and give up, but my son hasn't given up. He's fighting every day, and I can't give up if he's not going to give up. So I just kept working and kept moving forward. And now, there's still stuff. He gets medication for all sorts of things. You good, buddy? Anyway, he gets medications for lots of things. He, still has a G-tube. He still gets fed that way. He does not really have interest in eating food, which is frustrating, but it's a work in progress. He is slightly speech delayed because his mouth didn't learn to form as a baby. So speaking for him is a challenge. But with all these things, I still think that he's amazing, and I still am so grateful to him every day to help me move forward. I'm gonna keep working on my makeup. So now my son will be turning 3 soon. He is probably gonna start school once we find the right place, and we're going through the process of, making sure that wherever he goes, he'll be taken care of. We've had some disappointments with people who are, a little afraid of messing something up maybe. And, at first I was so angry and frustrated, and now I understand how things can be a little scary for people who aren't used to it. I understand how hard it can be for people who think that he might just, keel over one day, or his heart might stop working. And, those things are not what's going to happen. There will be signs, and we will know. But I feel like we'll find the right place for him. And I have been trying to find something for myself. When you become a parent or a wife or anything, you can lose some of yourself. When you are a full-time stay-at-home mom to a child who has lots of needs and needs your attention all the time, well, not as much all the time now, but when he was little, all the time, you kind of lose yourself. You forget that you are a person who has interest and likes, and you lose who you are a little. So I am trying to find myself, and that is the purpose of this YouTube channel, and that is the purpose of a blog that I've started, and a podcast that I'm starting. I am trying to figure out who I am outside of being a mom and a wife. And it's hard. I used to know I had a life, but you change when you get married. You change when you become a parent. You change every year as you grow. And if you don't, then your life's kind of sad. I mean, sorry, but it is. You should change. You should grow and experience new things. But with those new things, you also have to discover new things about yourself. So that is what I'm trying to do. I'm not a comedian. I can't do funny skits. I don't really know how to do this YouTube thing. But I thought I might as well try. And this is me trying. So I will be available on Ramblings by Me, which is this page. And also, I'm starting a podcast called the Capital City Crimes Podcast, which is all about crime in Washington, D.C., where I grew up. I don't live there now, but that's my hometown, and I love it. So I'm going to be talking about Chandra Levy and the Phantom Freeway Killer and all kinds of stuff. I love true crime. I love all the aspects. I love books. I love movies. I can go on for hours about those things. And that is kind of what I want to do on this page. I kind of just want to talk about the things that I love and my life and what it's like being a mom to a medically complex child. My son will need further surgery. He will always need help. And, there are people in this world who have so much more with their children. And, some of them can't walk, and some of them can't talk, and some are, autistic, some have Down syndrome. And I am not saying that my life is harder than anyone's. I'm just sharing the ups, the downs, the highs, the lows, because it's good for me. And if no one ever watches these videos, then that's okay too. because I will have said what I need to say to become more of a full person. You know, I want to share my story, who I am, and that's what I'm going to try to do. So, I'm Neville. I'm 40 years old. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. I'm a nurse. I was a teacher. I was a total juvenile delinquent. Can get into all that. I have some amazing friends who live on the other side of the country, and I'm trying to figure out who I am now in my life here, and all those things are hard to do. So instead of journaling or writing it all down, I'm going to do what people do these days. I'm going to talk about it on YouTube. So that is basically my story, at least my introduction. I am doing my makeup, which I will probably not do in the future on here, but I had to multitask today while my husband is home from work. He works weekends a lot, taking care of my son, so I had some time to get things done. One thing I will say now, I will never show my son on this channel. I will never take pictures of him, any of that stuff. So if you ask, the answer will always be no. My son deserves his privacy as a 3-year-old, and he deserves to be safe from the creeps of the world who want to see pictures of children, and that will never happen. So, yeah, I just wanted to put that out there before people ask. I guess if you watch this, if you feel at all inspired or want to share or anything like that, I have a website called cccpodcast16.com, which is about my podcast, and I blog and stuff like that. But you can reach out to me there. You can reach out to me here. If you have questions you want answered about anything to do with, you know, children's hurt stuff, I can ask people. I don't know everything. Obviously, I am not a doctor, but I know some pretty amazing doctors, and I can ask. You know, I'm here to talk about myself and my son and my life, but I also am happy to be a resource for people who maybe have a child who's not eating or having a hard time or anything. You know, I can commiserate. I can't fix anyone else's issues, but I can commiserate and listen. And yeah, so if you feel like it, like my video, subscribe, whatever. I don't really know how this all works, but I will be sharing hopefully a video every couple of days. I'm also going to be recording my first podcast episode soon, which I'm going to talk about DC and why I love it and why I chose Chandra Levy to be the subject of my first season of my podcast. I think that her death and everything is a tragedy and so mixed into the Washington DC life, and it's just all fascinating. I also will be shouting out to other podcasts, other creators, stuff like that, because I think that my son just threw something at me. I think that talking about how awesome other people are is really great, because there are some people out there who have made my life better, who have made me smile and have no idea that they have affected me in this way. So the first person I wanted to give a shout out to is Elise Myers. She's a creator. She has content on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook videos, all that. She's hilarious and real. And she said something once on a video that really inspired me. She said that if I am too much for you, then go find less. And that to me is like, yeah, if my life, if my issues, if all this stuff I'm going through is too much to listen to or too much, then go find less. Go find someone else. It's not gonna kill me. I will survive. So yeah, I love her, and you should look her up if you haven't heard her. Her first date taco story went viral a couple years back, and since then I've been a big fan. So thanks, Elise, for being out there. All right, well, bye everybody. Talk to you later.